So, I never thought this day would come, but I'm finally gonna read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. So, just to start off with, gotta get it out there that this reading vlog is heavily inspired by two other reading vlogs, Kat's and Noelle's, which will both be linked below. So go check those videos out because they're probably going to be a lot better than this one. So obviously I know about this book and I know about its reputation. I have personally looked at all the content warnings, all the trigger warnings. I know what I'm going into, as I think everyone should when going into this book. It's not one of those books where you should just go into it completely blind, not knowing what to expect. This is a book that has some seriously heavy topics, and I think you need to do your due diligence and look into them if you feel like that is something that you need, and that's what I've done. One of my favorite books of all time is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I read it almost a year ago, and I've heard some people say that this has similar vibes as The Goldfinch, so that's a big reason why I wanted to read it, because ever since I read The Goldfinch, I've wanted to read more books with similar vibes as that. So I'm hoping this will live up to that, because Goldfinch is great and everyone should read it. I've never done a reading vlog, so I don't know exactly what this is gonna be like. I don't really have any plans for the next few days, so I don't know if it's just gonna be clips of me reading or just me talking about my thoughts every 100 pages, or if I'm gonna go do something else and I'll vlog that. I don't know yet. We're gonna wing it together. I've also wanted to do booktube for a long time, and I've actually tried doing booktube a couple of times, a couple on different channels, a couple on times on this channel, but it's just never worked out. But I've been wanting to try again for like the 10th time for a while now. So I think this is a pretty good starting point for this channel. Might be a bit of a dramatic starting point, but it's good. I'm hoping it'll be good. I don't know how long it's going to take me to read this. It's a very big book. It is 814 pages. Okay. I don't know how long it's going to take me to read this. I might finish it in 2 days. I might finish it in a month. Who knows? I'm going to try and vlog the whole experience for you. Add my vlogs to the many. I don't really know what sort of expectations to have around this book. But I'm gonna really try to go into it without any. As hard as that sounds, I know that's gonna be hard to do. I know that Noelle in her vlog talked a bit about this, but like she said that she was so, like, she had such expectations of like expecting herself to cry or like looking for the sad parts, that's all she was really thinking about when reading it, and it kind of took away from that the reading experience for her. So I am going to do my best to go into this without expecting anything. I'm not going to expect that I'm gonna cry. I'm not gonna expect that I'm not gonna cry. I'm not usually a book crier. There's maybe like 5 books that I've ever cried at, maybe a couple more that I've like teared up at, but I'm not a book crier at all. Like, everyone goes into this book saying that they're afraid that they're not gonna cry, so I don't want to like be one of those people that's like, I don't think I'm gonna cry, and then like 3 days later I'm like sobbing with mascara running down my face. But I also don't want to go into this expecting to cry, because those high expectations might reverse it and make me not cry because I'm expecting so much. And Noelle kind of touched on that, like I said, in her video. So I think I've said a lot of what I wanted to say. So I think we should just get into this. I'm not ready, but I'm also ready. Like, I don't feel ready to read this book, but I feel like I'm never gonna feel completely ready to read this book, because it's so infamous that I'm never gonna truly be ready. So I just need to read it. It's a big boy, and I'm ready for it. Let's do this. So I just finished chapter 1 of part 1 of A Little Life, and I'm already really liking it. I was afraid that the writing was going to be like really pretentious, because I've heard that complaint from people about this book, but actually I'm not finding it pretentious at all. Not only am I not finding it pretentious, but I'm actually finding it really lovely and actually surprisingly easy to read. I've never considered myself particularly pretentious, but who knows, maybe I am, because I'm really liking this. Even though I'm only 1 chapter in, I'm already really sensing and enjoying this deep friendship between these 4 boys. That's something that I was really looking forward to, because obviously that's like the main part of the book, is the friendship between these 4. Really strong, deep, loving friendships is one of my favorite things to see and read about. It's actually one of the reasons I love The Goldfinch so much, is the relationship between the 2 boys. And I'm already seeing that in A Little Life, especially between Jude and Willem. So like the fact that I'm only a chapter in and I'm already feeling this deep friendship, just with the little bit I've seen, I can tell that just when I get further and further, it's just gonna get so much better and better. But yeah, read the first chapter. I'm gonna keep reading because I'm really enjoying it and I've got nothing better to do. I just got to chapter 3 of A Little Life. I'm on page 76, and I think I'm gonna be done for the night. It's getting later, but I've read the first 2 chapters, and like I said before, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the writing. I think it's lovely. I'm really loving getting to know the characters. We still haven't gotten to any sort of plot. No events have happened yet. We are solely getting to know the guys, but I'm not bored at all. I'm enjoying reading. I think it's going pretty quick for me. I'm really looking forward to picking this up again tomorrow. But right now, I'm gonna wash my face, probably watch some YouTube, and then go to bed. See you tomorrow. Okay, so I lied. I kept reading for a little while, and I read 1 more chapter, and I just got to part 2, The Postman. I'm already starting to feel very anxious for specifically Jude. And like, everyone, when they've read this book and when they've talked about this book, always say that like they really start getting emotional, or they really start feeling things past like the 200-page mark. I'm not even on page 100 yet. I'm on page like 96 or something, and I'm already feeling anxious and on edge and sad. So the fact that people say they don't start feeling this way until later on in the book, and I'm already feeling this way, makes me think that this book is going to be harder than I thought. And I already assumed it was going to be really hard. I'm just trying to prepare myself. But now I'm actually going to stop reading, because I'm going to go to bed, but I did keep reading. Sorry, I lied. But yeah, that's the update.
Hi, girls. Hi.
food. Hi, ladies. Oh, goodness. Hello. Good morning. Morning, girls. Hello. Good morning, ladies. Oh, goodness, what's that? Hi, pretty girls. Come on, I got your food. Come on. Hi, Peg. What's this? Camera. Oh, Peggy. Goodness. Hi. What? Peg? What's that? Oh. Roger. What? Hi. Oh, goodness. Peggy. 6 eggs for 6 chickies. Yeah. Bye, Peg. I'll see you later. Miss Sassy. Bye, Henry. Bye. Hello. So it is day 2 of reading A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. We're gonna do it. I'm not wearing any eye makeup today because I have a feeling I'll be crying at some point today. I was already starting to tear up last night, so I think I'm definitely gonna at least tear up again today, if not full on cry. It was like the back of your eye starting to sting, sort of tearing up, and not like barely able to control myself, barely able to hold it back tearing up. It was very subtle, but it was me tearing up, and I'm not even at page 100 yet. Even though I said I was gonna go into this expecting, like not expecting anything, whether that be expecting to cry, expecting not to cry, like I know I said that, but the fact that I was already tearing up last night when I was reading, and I haven't even hit the 100-page mark yet, I have a feeling I'll cry today at some point. But yeah, last night I got to just part 2, Postman. This is always the part in people's vlogs where they start to cry. Again, I'm not going into this expecting to cry or expecting not to cry, because I don't want to only focus on like, am I gonna be sad when I'm reading this? Like, when's a sad thing gonna happen? Because I feel like that will really take away from my reading experience. But I'm preparing myself for the possibility that it will get emotional today. I don't know how long I'm gonna be reading today. I don't schedule out my reading. I just read whenever I feel like reading. So maybe I'll read for only half an hour. Maybe I'll read for the rest of the day. I don't know, but the plan is to read at least some today. Part 2, The Postman. I think it's about to get pretty real. So I just finished chapter 1 of part 2 of A Little Life. And yeah, it's getting sad. Like, I know I haven't even gotten to like even a sliver of the bad part yet. And that's anxiety inducing. I'm gonna take a break. I need food. I need to eat. On page 178, about to start chapter 2 of part 2, The Postman. Hello there. It has been quite a few hours since I last talked to you. I think it's like 5:30 now. I haven't vlogged since like noon. So hi. Like I said before, I'm about to start chapter 2 of part 2. Yeah, I had a nice long break today from reading. I gave my brain a break, my emotions a break, but I'm ready to get back into it. So I just finished part 2 of A Little Life. I am now heading into part 3, which is called Vanities. I didn't cry. I got close a couple times, but I didn't, which is surprising because every reading vlog I've watched, people have cried at this point, at least once, if not multiple times. So I think my suspicions that I'm heartless and unemotional, they might be coming true a bit. I mean, we're still only 240 pages into the book, and it's an 800-page book, so who knows? But as of right now, I'm more heartless than everyone else who's read this. So that's great for me. I'm really enjoying it anyways. I'm not like upset about the fact that I haven't cried. I don't know if my prediction was coming true about what I talked about at the beginning of this vlog, where I said that like I really didn't want to go into it without any expectations, because then I would probably like trick myself into not living up to those expectations. No matter how hard I try, it's so hard to go into something without any expectations or biases. So I don't know if it is truly that has impacted me not crying yet, or if it's just me being really difficult to get emotional, which like I am. Like I've said this multiple times throughout this vlog, but I've like barely ever cried at any books. I've cried at like 3 to 5 books in my entire reading life. So it could easily just be the fact that I'm not a super emotional reader. I cry at every movie I ever watch. Like, I will cry at all movies. I'm such a movie crier, but I'm really not a book crier. But I still kind of was expecting to cry because everyone cries. And maybe I still will. But I'm really still gonna try to not have any expectations, to either cry or not cry. I am so involved in this story and these characters, but there's still always that like expect to cry at the back of my mind, and I'm really trying to not have that, because even though I am so attached to this story and so in it, I feel like I would be so much more if I didn't have this expectation of crying in the back of my mind the whole time while I was reading. Because like in Kat's vlog, she cried at a certain part and she said the page that she cried on. So the entire time that I was getting closer and closer to that page, I was like, don't look at the page number because you're gonna expect to cry, but I couldn't help looking at the page number. And like, obviously that's not Kat's fault or anything, but like the fact that she mentioned a specific page that she cried on made me really expectant for this page. But now I've gotten past that point and I didn't cry. Maybe now that I've gotten past that one specific point that I was really anticipating, maybe it'll be easier for me to get those expectations out of my mind. I really love found family stories, and obviously we have that with Jude and Harold and Julia and his friends like Willem and Malcolm and JB. It's all found family, but the relationship between Jude and Harold specifically that has developed, I'm really, really loving, and I'm so like anxious because I want everything to work out and I want everyone to be happy. But I know that's not what this book is. I know it doesn't have a happy ending, but I just love a good found family story, man. So I'm exactly this far in. I'm on page 243, about to start part 3. I think my brain just needs a break from all the emotions. So I think I might take a little break and then start reading again, or maybe not. Maybe I'm done for the night. I'll update you. Hello there. It's the next day, and I did not end up updating you last night, but I did keep reading. I got to almost page 300 last night. Yeah, I'm doing my makeup. I'm using the Revolution Forever Flawless Constellation palette. I'm trying to decide what color to go for today. Maybe like a blue and purple look. Who knows? Just like that. Done my makeup. So it's a lot later. I haven't updated you at all since this morning. Mainly because I haven't really read much today, but I started reading again about like an hour ago. And I'm on page 335 now. And I almost cried. It's the closest I've gotten. I've teared up a few times throughout the book, but this time it was like the tears were almost falling. They were in the eyes. It was very unexpected because the part that I almost cried at was something that I've never heard anyone talk about when talking about this book, and it was about JB. And the entire time I've been reading, JB has always been kind of my least favorite of the four guys, so I really didn't think that he was going to be the one that almost got me first. So I just finished chapter 1 of the Axiom of Equality, the chapter that ends with X equals X. It's really fucking sad. I've officially cried. Not only am I so attached to Jude that anyone who is even slightly rude to him makes me like irrationally angry, let alone the shit that has happened to him and is happening to him. But like also like that, just that last like paragraph really hit me in a personal way, and it almost feels like I'm like crying for the both of us. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go wash my face, and I don't know if I'm gonna continue tonight, but that was a lot. Hi, ladies. Hello. Peggy, I don't really need your sass today. No. You either. Hey, so it's been a while, and I've been reading for like an hour and a half, and I'm on page 440. I haven't cried again, but I did tear up like just a couple pages ago. It wasn't even like at anything like really horrible happening. It was just being in Jude's thoughts. And honestly, obviously I'm only halfway through the book, so I don't know if I'm gonna cry again. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how emotional it is gonna be, but I have a feeling that I'm not gonna cry again. Or at least I don't think I'm gonna have those same sorts of really like horrible reactions that people have really commonly with this book. Like, I really don't, obviously I could be wrong and I could be playing myself here, but I really don't think that at the end of this I'm gonna be having the same reaction as like everyone else who's read this book. I really don't think I'm gonna be like uncontrollably sobbing on my bedroom floor. And I've really been thinking about that like all day. I've just been thinking about the like way that readers treat this book and how readers treat the reading experience surrounding this book. And I think it's really weirdly problematic in ways that I haven't heard people talk about before. If people are talking about the problems with this book, people are talking about like the content. Or like Noelle in her video, she talked about the fact that this book has like a weird fandom that wants everyone else to read it, no matter how traumatizing it is. But what I've been thinking about this book is the like expected reaction that everyone thinks you should have while reading this book, and how if you don't have that reaction, it's like something to be ashamed about. Like, you have to keep it quiet. And I think that's really bad. Like, everyone and their mother who has read this book raves about it and says, oh my God, yeah, it broke me. I was crying on my bathroom floor for 2 hours after I finished it. It left me like deeply depressed for a month when I was done. But I feel like that's really probably not the universal reaction that people have, but the people who don't have that reaction keep it quiet because it's like weird that they didn't cry. I started thinking about this last night when I was reading before I cried. So I cried for the first time last night, but before I cried, I was really thinking about like, I really don't think I'm gonna cry when I'm reading this book. And it got to a point of me thinking about like, what if I'm not gonna cry, that I genuinely considered faking crying just for this vlog. And it was just like a very brief consideration I had, but I was like, it's gonna be so embarrassing for me if I make a vlog surrounding reading A Little Life and I don't end up crying. And the fact that I even thought that is so bad. Like, the reputation that people have given this book, that has made me almost consider faking a reaction just so that I wouldn't have people telling me that I'm like a terrible person for not crying. Like, really think about that. Like, I feel like there are 1,000,001 reasons why people do cry at this book and about this book, but there are just as many reasons that people don't cry about this book. And no, those reasons are never talked about, they're never shown. Like, I'm sure tons of people have not cried at this book, but they've either lied and said they have cried, or they just haven't talked about whether they've cried or not. I'm sure there have been people who have given this book 5 stars, but haven't cried. It's not just people give it 5 stars and say they sobbed uncontrollably, or people hated this book and didn't cry at all and gave it 1 star. Like, there's so much more diversity in the ratings and experiences of people reading this book, and there's so much overlap. There has to be, but nobody talks about it. It's either one or the other. Like, I feel like people have sensationalized this reading experience so much and have made it seem like there is only one reaction anyone can have while reading this, that anyone who doesn't have that one specific reaction to this book is like shamed for it. You are not some like terrible, unemotional, unempathetic person if you didn't cry while reading this. Like, maybe you just don't like the writing style and you didn't connect with it. Maybe you don't like the characters. Maybe you love the characters, but you're just not an emotional person. Maybe it hit you like really internally, but you just didn't show it physically. Maybe you're neurodivergent and you just don't show emotions the same way as people. Maybe the stuff that's in this book relates to you so personally that you're like desensitized to it. Maybe you did cry. Maybe you shed a single tear, but you didn't sob uncontrollably on your floor like everyone else supposedly has. Maybe you're like me and you are relating to everything really internally and you are so sad for the characters and you're being just as traumatized as during reading this as anyone else has been, but you're just not crying over it. Maybe you're just looking at it as any other book and like you know it's fictional, so it's not as effective to you as it would be if it was happening to someone you know in real life, or if it was happening to you. Like, there are so many reasons why someone might not cry, and the fact that people have like really forced this narrative that you will cry, and if you don't, there's like something wrong with you. And like, I have cried. I cried a little bit. Maybe I will sob at the end of this. Maybe I will end up like Kat or Noelle or any of the other people who have read and reviewed this. Maybe I'm gonna be like completely traumatized by the end of this book. Maybe I will have that reaction, but right now I haven't. And I know that so many other people probably haven't, and like, that's fine. Not crying at this book is just as valid as being left in a puddle of your own tears on your bathroom floor from this book. Like, both reactions are valid, and I only feel like one of them is validated by the fandom that this book has. And it feels weird that even saying this, that this horribly traumatizing book even has a fandom. Like, that's horrible to say, and it's really weird. But it does. We can't deny that. This book does have a fandom. And I feel like the fandom is the main reason to blame for the reputation that this book has and for the way that people consume this book and the expectations that people have going into this book. Like, it is just so weird to me that it's this like shameful thing if you don't cry at this book. And no one I have seen or heard of has talked about that. They either talk about just how amazing this book is and how unbelievably they sobbed at it and how like everyone needs to read this book, which is like, it's this weird thing where it's like, yeah, that's valid, but also like you're being really irresponsible by saying everyone should read this book because they shouldn't. Or you get people talking about how like that problem where like this is a really traumatic book and really triggering, and like people recommend it and read it really irresponsibly. It's only over those two problems, or those two like things that people talk about surrounding this, and I haven't heard anyone talk about how if you don't live up to the expectation of this reading experience, that you're like weird. And like, you might not have seen these things being said, but I have. I've seen people in the comments of videos reading this vlog being like, how could anyone not cry at this? Or like, it's 100% guaranteed that you will sob uncontrollably at the end of this. Like, there's no room for anything else according to people who love this book. And that's just so wrong. The fact that only one reaction is expected for people who read this and nothing else is acceptable. And I'm just here to say that's not true. You're not some horrible, heartless, psychopathic, bad person just for not crying at a book. Like, I just can't get over that last night I actually considered faking crying because I was ashamed that I hadn't cried yet. I was only like 250 pages into the book in an 800 and something page book, and I hadn't cried yet, and I was ashamed of myself for not crying, and I was embarrassed because everyone everyone cries in the first like 200 pages, and if you haven't cried by that part, you're heartless. Like, the fact that I even considered it is just mind-boggling to me, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it all day. And I know that me considering doing that wasn't my own fault, that it was purely because of the expected reaction that this fandom has put on people while reading this. Because this book has been so hyped and it's so sensationalized, and I had so many expectations going into it because of other people and the reviews I've seen. Because I actually thought last night, like, how am I supposed to post this reading vlog if I'm not gonna cry? Like, I'm not even gonna post it if I don't cry, and that's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous thing to even think, like, because I didn't have this one specific reaction that everyone else has, I can't even add to this conversation. And, like, maybe I sound mad, but I kind of am. Because, like, no one has ever, I've never seen anyone talk about this. And it is purely the fault of the people who have made this sensationalized aura around this book. And, like, I know when I post this, if I post this, if that last time that I cried is the only time I cried, I know there's going to be comments being like, wow, how could you only cry that much? Or, like, you consider that crying, you only dropped, like, 1 tear. Like, I'm only halfway through the book and I already have anxiety about posting this reading vlog because I haven't had the reaction that everyone else has supposedly had. And, like, I'm loving this book, but I'm still afraid to talk about how much I love this book because people are gonna say that, how can you say you love this book when you didn't cry at it? I'm just gonna keep reading with the assumption that I'm not gonna cry, because I don't think I will. And if I do cry, I don't think it's gonna be the same type of crying that you've seen in other vlogs or you've heard about in other reviews. Like, I'm not exactly neurotypical, and my reactions to emotional things aren't really the same as other people's. Something that I've really realized about my own emotions and my own reactions to things is that my reactions come from other people's reactions. And by that I mean that when something really horrible or traumatic happens, I don't really visibly react to it, but I will really emotionally react to other people's reactions to that thing. Some examples. The first book I read this year was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. But I didn't cry at that book during all the really traumatic parts. I cried at the very end when Claudia is crying, when she finally just kind of lets go. Like other books I've cried at, Mockingjay, I didn't cry at any of the characters' deaths, but I did cry at the scene with the cat. In Harry Potter, I've never cried at any of the characters' deaths. I've teared up at a couple, but I've never cried. The only time I've ever cried during Harry Potter is at the end of Goblet of Fire when Molly is hugging him and he is having this really emotional reaction about finally feeling a mother's hug and, like, processing all the traumatic shit he just went through. That's the sort of stuff I cry at. Not the actual traumatic events, but people's reactions later on to those traumatic events. And so the stuff that in this book that's getting me isn't the horrible shit that's happening, and I know people are gonna, like, judge me for that. But, like, the stuff that I've cried at or almost cried at is when people are, like, reacting to it and having, like, emotional processing moments, or, like, seeing the way those traumatic events have affected them later on down the road. That's the sort of stuff I get emotional at. And so obviously I don't know what happens at the end of the book, but I'm afraid, and, like, the fact that I even say I'm afraid, but, like, I'm afraid that it's not going to be one of those moments. It's going to just be, like, traumatic events, and then I'm not going to have the sort of reaction that people want me to have, which is, like, it's so silly, and it's so wrong that sort of mindset going into this book has been so instilled by the fandom surrounding this book, but it has. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way, who feels bad for not crying, or who feels bad for not having the exact same reaction as all these people who have gotten popular for sobbing at this book. So I'm just gonna keep going with the assumption that I'm not gonna cry and that that's okay. And like, I don't have to make myself feel bad for not having this one specific reaction to a book that I'm really loving. Because I am really loving this book. And like, I'm not gonna let anything or anyone else's feelings about this book or how you should feel about this book to affect how much I love this book. Yeah, I know that was a bit of a rant, and I'm only halfway through the book, so I don't know what sort of things I'll talk about at the end of this, but that's just been something that's really been eating away at me all day. I just had a lot to say. So I hope some of you can relate to that, and I hope some of you agree. Because like, this is a big problem I've seen surrounding the conversations of this book. And I feel like we need a bit more diversity in what we see when we see people reading this book. Because it's not all just people laughing at how much they're crying, you know? You're allowed to have different reactions for whatever reason. Any reason for not crying at this book is valid. Just as valid as any reason for crying at this book. And I'm here to tell you that. Thank you. Good day. I didn't vlog at all yesterday, but that's because I didn't read at all yesterday. There was no reason for that. I just didn't ever think about picking up a book yesterday. And that's fine. You're not always in the mood for reading. It's all good. The day before yesterday, I got to part 5, The Happy Years, and I'm about to start it. I have an assumption of what this part's gonna like revolve around and be about, but I also have an assumption that it's not gonna be as happy as the title says it will be. So, I'm gonna hopefully get through a good chunk of it today. I'm getting close to the end. I've got like a third of the way left. And I feel like the last third of it is where it really gets people and where people get like really into it. So maybe I'll finish it today. Maybe I'll only read like 10 pages today. Who knows? Not making any promises, but I do plan on reading today, unlike yesterday. Happy years are not very happy. And I just cried again. After the scene in the closet, I'm starting to get really anxious about what's gonna happen. I just really want them to be okay. Both of them. And I want them to be happy and healthy, and I don't think we're gonna get that. And I'm really anxious about it. I don't know how much more I'm gonna read tonight. I just got to a chapter break and I'm taking a break. But I've still got like 100 pages left of The Happy Years. So I don't think I'll be finishing that tonight. I don't know what to do. So I'm on page 637. I just reached chapter 3 of The Happy Years, and I'm going to be done for the night. I don't really know how to predict what's going to happen. Like, where I'm at in this book, it could really just go off into so many different directions, and I don't really know how to predict which one it will go off into, so I'm gonna not try and even predict anything. So I didn't read at all yesterday. Again, I also didn't vlog. My brain just wasn't really in the mood to like focus on one single thing for like an extended period of time. So I just preferred yesterday to do little things. So I didn't get any further than I was. Where was I? Page 637, chapter 3 of the Happy Years. I still have like 100 pages of the Happy Years left to go. I doubt I'll finish that today, but I'm hoping I will read at least something today, because I didn't read at all yesterday, and that's the second day during this vlog that I haven't read at all. This book is quite a task and can be quite draining, so I did it. I got to the end of the part, and I'm about to start Dear Comrade. I did it. But also I don't want to keep reading because I'm very scared about what's going to happen and what just happened. I have exactly 100 pages left to read until I'm done. And going into the book, obviously I've known that the last 100 pages are like the hardest part to read, so I'm really nervous to continue. And like obviously going into it knowing that, I knew something bad was gonna happen. Like I knew it was gonna get really, really good for the characters, and then something bad would happen, which would spiral the last 100 pages into something really hard. But like also, it was like so good. It could have been the perfect ending for the characters, you know? It could have been a happy ending. But then it gets fucked up, and I'm afraid to keep reading. Where I just left off, where that part ends and Dear Comrade is about to begin, it's a bit open-ended right there. Kind of a cliffhanger. Big cliffhanger. And so I'm scared about what's gonna happen next. Jude and Willem are two of the most tangible fictional characters I've ever read. Like they just feel so unbelievably real. And like I know this book doesn't have a happy ending. Like I know that. Or at least that's what I've heard. Everyone I've ever seen talk about this book says that it doesn't have a happy ending. And so I know going into these last 100 pages, it's gonna be really hard. I've been like tricking myself into thinking everything's gonna be okay. I've only got 100 pages left, but also it's getting pretty late. And so I don't want to keep reading because I know I won't be able to finish it tonight. And it's probably going to be all I'm thinking about tonight and all I'm going to be thinking about tomorrow morning, but I want to finish it all in one go. So I'm going to leave it for tomorrow, and hopefully I'll finish it tomorrow. Hello, lovelies. It is the next day. It's not exactly morning. It's 12:40. I've kind of been putting reading off all morning. I'm so close to being done, and I know this is gonna be the worst part in terms of like emotions and stuff. I'm gonna try to read as much as I can today, but I'm not making any promises because who knows, these last 100 pages might be so hard that it takes me another like week to read. I don't know. I'm about to start part 6, Dear Comrade. see you tomorrow. So it's been a couple of days now. I just took some time to kind of sit with my emotions for a while. But yeah, I finished A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I gave it 5 stars. For me, this was a 5-star book, and I think it's also one of my new favorite books. I didn't think I would have the reactions to it that I did. I thought going into it that I would really like it because of all the great things I've heard about it, and because people have said it's an atmosphere that is similar to some of my other favorite books. So I assumed I would like it, but I also assumed that I wasn't going to be one of the people that had really like intense experiences reading this, but I was. Hanya Yanagihara is an author that is so talented at really towing the line in that sweet spot of beautiful writing and pretentious writing. I know that there are some people who find this writing pretentious, but I really didn't. Personally, I found the writing in this book to be really beautiful and descriptive without getting to that point of being really wordy and like pseudo-intellectual. Hanya Yanagihara did things to me personally that I've never really experienced for when reading, or at least I haven't experienced to this degree or this quickly. Like, the characters in this book, particularly Jude and Willem, are 2 of the most tangible characters that I've ever read. And that happened for me so early on in the book. Like, this is an 800-page book, and by page like 50, maybe even less than page 50, these already felt like incredibly real, deep characters, but nothing had even happened yet. I don't know how Hanya Yanagihara did that. Like, I had kind of stopped at one point in the beginning and I was like, why am I already so attached to these characters? Nothing's happened. We don't know anything about them yet. And I think that was solely because of the writing and the way she wrote this. And that's never happened to me. Like, it takes quite a lot longer for me to be that deeply attached to fictional characters. I know that there's a fair bit of discourse surrounding this book and the way that trauma and mental illness are written in this book, but for me personally, this book has one of the most accurate portrayals of trauma and mental illness and what it does to a person's thought processes that I've ever read. The mental illness depicted in this book and the way that it affects the character's sense of self and their relationships with people is so realistic to me, and it like caught me off guard because it was just so accurate, at least to me. I really appreciated that the author went for accuracy over the comfort of the reader, because the things written in this book and the way that people talk about themselves in this book and just like the self-hatred that is in this book, it's very uncomfortable to read, but it is so incredibly real. And I felt that when reading this, and it was so accurate and so, I don't think relatable is the right word because that makes it sound like really shallow and like overdone, but like it was relatable in a way that I've never read before, like almost to the point of it being weirdly comforting, which is weird to say for such a traumatic and triggering book that it would be comforting in that way, but it was to me. This might sound really weird for me to say, but Jude is a character that has made me be really self-reflective in a way that no other character ever has been before. And I know that the experiences and the depictions in this book don't relate to everyone and aren't accurate for everyone, but I think that that's the same for any book, and so you can't really fault this particular book for that. This is the sort of thing that I see a lot of people talk about, is like what's good rep and what's bad rep. And I think that the biggest fault in any of those arguments is that it's going to be different for every single person. Like, what's amazing rep to me could be the worst rep for you. And it's not up to either one of us to say that one of us is wrong or not. Like, for me, this book is an incredibly accurate and realistic and appreciated representation of mental illness and trauma. But I know for other people, they're like, this is harmful. And I don't think it is, but it's okay for you to think it is. And I think that's all you can say about any representation, about anything in any book. People really stick to their opinions when it comes to this book, and I'm the exact same way already. It's been like 2 days since I finished reading it, and I'm already one of those people that's like, yeah, no, nothing any one of you can say can make me change my opinion about this book. The negative opinions are the exact same way. So it's not up to me to tell you that you should find the rep in this book really good, but it's good rep for me, and none of you can tell me that that's wrong of me, because rep is different for everyone, and what's good rep for one person is the worst rep for another person. One of the main things I loved about this book was that this book had so many really interesting, meaningful themes that I think were subtle enough to not be thrown in your face and super obvious, but also still there enough for anyone who reads it to pick up on. I thought all these characters had really interesting individual storylines, some more than others, but they all felt like there was at least some focus put on each of them in their own times. Like, obviously, there are the main characters, and the bulk of the focus is on them, but it's also done in a way where the background characters, or the other main characters who aren't the main characters, they still feel like they had their time to shine. And they weren't just like thrown in there and were very one-dimensional. Like, everyone in this book feels legitimate. Personally, when reading this and after finishing reading it and thinking about it, I don't really have many negative feelings about anything in this book, but I do have a lot of negative feelings about the way this book is treated and like the fandom surrounding this book. When people talk about any negative feelings they have associated with this book, a lot of the time it's not even the fault of the book. It's the way that the book was talked about before they read it, or like the way they've seen people treat this book. It's not the fault of the book or the author that this book can be so triggering to people. Firstly, I think it's the fault of the publisher for not including trigger warnings with this book. I think this should have been printed with trigger warnings from the get-go, and I think that from now on it should be. A person who just randomly finds this in the bookstore isn't gonna know how incredibly traumatic this reading experience is. Like, just how incredibly vast the triggering material is in this book. And that's not the fault of the author, that's not the fault of the book itself, that is the fault of the publisher for not making it clear to someone who just randomly finds this. So first of all, that's the publisher's fault, but also it is the fandom's fault for sensationalizing this reading experience and for not properly warning people when recommending this book. The amount of times I have seen people comment oh my god, yeah, I just finished that book and I immediately sent it to my best friend to read. I don't care how well you think you know the people in your life. It is your responsibility to warn them about everything within this book. All the triggering material, all of the content warnings. It is your responsibility as someone who has read this book to warn people when recommending it. And people don't do that with this book. I'm seeing it more so nowadays, but still, you constantly see people just being like, people have to read this book. Like, even on videos specifically talking about this issue that surrounds this book, you'll see comments being like, oh my god, yeah, everyone needs to read this. Or like, I just finished it and now I'm making my mom read it because it was so good. And it's like, that's literally what the video you're watching was about. Like, you're the person that's being criticized. Don't do that. And I think that's where a lot of people's problems with this book come from. And that's not even the fault of the book itself, because books are allowed to have triggering material. Books are allowed to deal with this sort of content as long as people are forewarned beforehand. This reading experience has been so sensationalized to the point that people want to read this book not even for the content within it, but just because they want the experience of being traumatized, and that's like so fucked up. People shouldn't be experiencing any sort of FOMO with this book. People shouldn't be treating this book as some sort of like bucket list book. It is a very good book, but it is not a book for the vast majority of people. I think the intended audience of this book is very small, and it is up to you to decide if you're part of that audience, but you need to do your due diligence and look into the content warnings of this book and decide for yourself there, because this is not a book that anyone ever should be going into blind. You are not missing out on some sort of big life experience for not reading this book. It is okay if you don't want to read this book. It is okay if you don't think you can handle it. The vast majority of people shouldn't be reading this. It is not for most people. And I need to drill that into people's minds, because the FOMO associated with this reading experience is ridiculous. I felt some degree of FOMO with this book as well. But I'm here to tell you don't, because my life isn't changed just for reading this. I could have gone without reading it. Like, yes, it's now a favorite book of mine, but I also knew the content going into it, and I knew that I would probably be able to handle it. And if I ended up not being able to handle it, that's not on the book, because I looked into it. A point that I really, really, really need to emphasize is that even if you're looking at all these warnings and the things that I'm telling you right now, even if you still want to read this book after this, I really need to emphasize that your reason for wanting to read this book still should be you wanting to read it despite the traumatic nature of it, not because of the traumatic nature of it. Please think about your reason for wanting to read this book. Sit with it for a while and decide for yourself. And if you want to read it because you know it's going to be traumatic and you just want to experience that for yourself, that's a problem that you have, because that's not okay. That's not something you should be doing. If you want to read this book, read it despite the trauma, not because of it. That is my main point for this entire section of the video. I am going to make sure that I have a full, comprehensive list of content warnings and trigger warnings in both the bottom of the description of this video and my review. I have been compiling lists since page 1 of me reading, and I have looked at other lists online to make sure I'm not missing anything. A lot of people, when giving trigger warnings of this book, they kind of just say like all trigger warnings apply, and that's not good enough. I mean, yes, it's true. Pretty much all trigger warnings that you can think of apply to this book, but it is still your responsibility to list those triggers out for people. So that's what I'm going to do. A full content warning, trigger warning list will be at the bottom of the description of this video. I will properly label it, and it will be in alphabetical order. It is a very long list, but it is extremely necessary to have that list there, and I will make sure to put it in there. And I implore you to look at that list before deciding to read this book or not. No one on earth should be going into this book blind. Like, you might want to, you might think that might be a cool experience. Don't. A common complaint I have seen about this book is that it's super manipulative, and that it manipulates the reader to get really attached to these characters and then just like destroys it all. And I'm not going to deny that that's true, because it is very true, but I see a problem with criticizing this book for that, because all books are that manipulative. Romance books are just as manipulative. Horror books are just as manipulative. Comedies. All art manipulates its audience, and I think it's really unfair to so heavily criticize this specific piece of art for being manipulative when nobody blinks an eye at all other art for being just as manipulative as this. The only thing that makes this particular piece of art be so prone to criticism for this thing is because the manipulation surrounds sad emotions, and people don't like that. The author is not some sort of terrible exploitative person for manipulating her audience to feel sad emotions, in the same way that romance authors aren't bad people for manipulating their audience to feel happy emotions. Nobody gets on horror books for manipulating a reader to feel super scared. But as soon as it's a book that deals with like sad topics and like characters going through some shit, it's like people get mad at the author for writing so manipulatively. And it's like, every artist does this, and that's not a fault of the book or the author. I'm sure that's gonna spark many different opinions, but that's my opinion. This book, to me, isn't any more manipulative than any other book in any other genre. It's just that this book manipulates you to feel very sad, and people don't like those emotions, so they get mad at it. However, with saying that, I obviously acknowledge that this book isn't immune to criticism, and people can criticize it as freely as they wish to. That's just my opinion on this particular criticism that I see a lot of the time. Another thing I wanted to touch on, which is something that I went like on a full rant about earlier in this video, but just like the sensationalized reading experience surrounding this book and how that can make people feel when they don't experience that same thing. A lot of the time when I read reviews or watch reading vlogs about this book, the main thing I hear from the people reading it is like, oh look, I'm not a heartless bitch after all, I sobbed at the end of this. And it's like, if you don't cry at this book, you're not a heartless bitch, I promise you. I'm not gonna go super deep into this because I did way earlier on in this video, but it's just something I wanted to touch on again, that like, not everyone is gonna cry at this book, and that's fine. Not everyone reacts to these sorts of things the same way. That's fine, for whatever reason they have, whether they're just desensitized to it or they psyched themselves out by expecting to cry so much, which is something that I was doing quite early on in the book, or whether they just straight up didn't like the book and didn't feel emotionally connected to it. Like, it's all fine. You don't have to cry at this book, and I feel a strong push to put this video up to just add to the narrative, because I feel like this opinion that I have is needed in the discussion. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I wanted to touch on at the end of this. I rated this book 5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I really loved it. It's a new favorite. I do recommend this book to the people who have gone through and looked at all the proper warnings and who feel like they can handle it. I do not recommend this book to everyone. I think that most people shouldn't read it and don't need to read it, but for those people who think they do really want to read it and do feel like they can handle it, I definitely recommend it. Again, all content warnings and trigger warnings will be in the description of this video. Please look at them if you're interested in reading this book. Hey, thanks for checking out my channel. This is quite a first video for this channel, so I hope you stick around, and I hope that I stick with making videos, because I've tried so many times. I hope this is the one that will stick. Thank you for feeling enough interest in me reading a book that you tuned in, and hey, maybe stick around for a while. I had a lovely time with this video, and I hope I make many more like this. So thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.